So we're still insulating. There's a little fiberglass on the screen right there. Hold on. One second. Okay. So we're still insulating. We're not quite finished up with it yet. We almost have it done. Almost. And it seems like an ongoing process that me personally, I want it to be completely insulated. So, you know, it's warm when it's cold and it's cool when it's warm. Nicolette just wants to move on and get it over with, which I totally get, but it needs to be done properly. And so I tried to explain to Nicolette how to, you know, insulate it, and she did a fantastic job, but there were a few spots that just needed help. You know, there's gaps in between, and you know, there was maybe not enough in certain areas, and I take responsibility for that because I was the one who told her how to do it, and I thought that she knew how, but clearly I didn't explain well enough. And you know, with my background in construction, putting in windows, you know, I've used this stuff in the past, and it's really not that hard, but I do want to go on and explain and maybe even give a little disclaimer on like how to properly insulate when using fiberglass insulation. It's the cheapest, it's the most effective for your buck. It might be a little itchy, but it works really well when it's done properly. And so I'm just gonna show you a little bit of the do's and don'ts when it comes to insulating. Make sure it's all plugged up. Like, you don't want gaps in between. Before we had a little gap here, but you know, you can overstuff. But what you cannot do is stuff too much. And I know that sounds contradictory, but what I mean is, if you take this pad and you scrunch it up and you try to shove it in somewhere like that, you are losing all of your R value, your insulation value, because now it just crumples up and there's not enough airflow for it to breathe. But if you have gaps in between, obviously you're not insulating either. So there's a line that you have to, there's a fine line that you have to dance with, and it's between stuffing just enough so it's nice and aerated, but obviously not too much where you can't get any in there, and if you're stuffing where it's all crunching down, that's a problem. And so, I mean, it's basic, but it can be really easy to stuff too much in, and it can also be really easy to stuff not enough. So when you're using it, just make sure that it's aerated. You can press down, you can mold it around, you know, stuff these corners real good, but again, you don't want it too much where you're like you're pushing too hard to get in, or if you want to move it out, you're pulling too hard. And then on top of our insulation, we're just gonna put another or one more layer of Reflectix over the top of everything. And as we've alluded to earlier, what this does is it's a radiant barrier, so it keeps the sun's radiation from coming all the way in to the van. So it just reflects it back off. And so by surrounding our entire frame with this Reflectix, it just gives us another added level of protection from the heat. And plus it'll enclose all of this off so we can't see it, and so it doesn't really move around. And yeah, it just gives it a nice little finishing touch before we put on our paneling. Welcome back.
Good morning. It is 7:30 in the morning.
We're getting after it today. This is episode 5.
About week 3.
About week 3.
Earlier this week, John talked about insulation.
How to properly insulate when using, you know, fiberglass insulation. Then we also covered the rest of the walls and paneling. Most of it, actually all of it. Yeah, all of it in Reflectix, just to give us an extra radiant barrier. Nicolette was fed up with the insulation process.
With insulation.
But I'm telling her, it'll be worth it.
It will.
It'll be worth it.
I just want to move on.
We do have to insulate our ceiling still, but we're waiting till we get all of our studs set up for our cabinets. And
Which is what we're doing now.
Yes, that is what we're doing for this episode.
So we'll show you what we've done so far, and then we're going to continue to do the rest. So we need to support the ceiling, and we're going to put metal beams across the top, but we need something to tie them into, so this will be what they will screw into. And then also, these are the studs for our cabinets.
What we did is we took our furring strips and we measured out a piece to go behind this 1x and right up until this lip. And then we cut 2 more that fit in on top of the 1x and right underneath pretty much the top of the high top. So then we screwed all 3 of them together, or yeah, all 3 furring strips together, and then we used Gorilla Glue behind it to fasten it to the fiberglass, and then 2 more screws into the 2x. That it was a 1x, but now it's a 2x because it's a 2x2 into the last piece. So pretty solid. I don't think it's going anywhere, I hope. And yeah, so like I said, you know, ours is a unique situation because we have the fiberglass high top, and so we have to take precautions in order to fully secure it.
And now let's get to work. Okay, so here is where we ended up with our furring strip supports. We did it all across the van here. We rigged up these beams across to help, when we Gorilla Glued it, help stabilize it and hold it and fasten it to the fiberglass. So now we're just gonna finish cutting the fiberglass and fill in the rest of the spaces there. And then we're gonna begin insulating the ceiling, and that should for real be done on the insulation portion. Then we can move on to something more exciting.
Okay, just as a reminder, when you're using Gorilla Glue, which is a super adhesive bond that glues to everything, original Gorilla Glue bonds virtually everything. What you have to do is you have to wet down one side, especially if it's wood. So you have to wet down, damp it, not soaking wet, but just enough to begin the adhering process. Somehow the water activates something in the glue to be released, and then it expands, kind of like what you can see in some of these cracks. So just a friendly reminder to wet your wood. Alright, so we're using the AP foil faced poly isocyanurate continuous insulation. It's foil faced, it's a 1/2 inch thick, has an R value of 2.7. This is going to go up on our roof, and it's going to keep us insulated nice and warm. To adhere the insulation to the roof, we are using PL300 foam board, and it's great for adhering. It's specifically used for foam board. So that's what we're using, and now we will get to work. So we kind of had a little blooper and didn't put up our studding in between all of our foam boards. The studding in between will allow us to put up paneling that goes all the way across. So now what we're doing, before we didn't get too far ahead, but we're putting this furring strip up on top of the fiberglass using liquid nails, and then that will allow us to shoot up into the furring strip when we go and put on our paneling.
Okay, we're frustrated. This is annoying.
Yeah.
So this is what our ceiling looks like. We have these furring strips across that eventually our paneling, when we cover the ceiling, that's what it'll screw into. We would have thought about it beforehand. This would have been so much easier, but I don't know. It's fine. But you can see we've got all this bracing system up because we have a slight arch in the fiberglass roof, so we're having to use liquid nails and we're holding it up. But essentially that's what we'll do all the way across here. You can see we're like halfway done. We got one over here. But it's being a pain. And it's a waiting game for sure.
Yeah, because we can't do anything until all of this dries up. And we need 24 hours for the PL300 to set up for our foam board. And it's only been about 14 and it's still wet, so
Yeah.
you would think that it would dry up, but it hasn't. And so we really just have to be patient, allow it to settle, check back, and hopefully it's dried and secure. But right now, it's not. So we continue on.
This has definitely been the most frustrating part of the whole van.
And it's something, you know, you have to be like 5 steps ahead of what you're doing. Obviously, we didn't take this into consideration, so now we have to go back a step. But that's the challenges that come with building your first van. So you live and you learn. We're done with insulation. That was a long, arduous process.
This is it.
And we are very happy to be done with all that.
I hated every second of it.
Yeah, and I wasn't very enthused about it, but it's something that we had to do.
Yep.
You know, it's something that must be done to keep us well insulated, warm, or cool.
And it does really, like, you sit inside here, it's cool. Like,
it
I know
makes a
we're sitting in
difference.
the shade, but it's cool in there.
It makes a huge difference. So yeah, as you can see, we got all of our bracing set up to allow the adhesive to set up on the foam boards. And yeah, so we'll wait 24 hours
Before we can do anything.
before we can really do anything else on the inside. And
Stay tuned
I
for
guess-
what's next.
yeah, it's a mystery. What will it be? There's only a few options, but take a guess. All right, well, see you later. Till next time. Bye.